Hey guys, I'll be on in just a minute. Just waiting for a few more to show up, and I also have the other stream up and running. Hello to you over in Parsec. And hello to you guys on YouTube and Twitch now. So let's see here. Yep, we're gonna get rolling in just a minute here, and we're gonna take a look at the normal stuff: Bitcoin, traditional markets, some alts. I see the starting screen has frozen. That's awesome. All right. Yeah, Spin, if you want to contact me, hit me up in DMs on Twitter. That's the easiest way. I mean, you can email me through YouTube, but it's not the most reliable. I would, easiest way is to follow the link in the description to my Twitter page. Hold on, let me turn the music down for just a moment. Bring this down a bit. So the easiest way to contact me is to head over to the link in the description, go over to Twitter or x.com now, and you can you might not be able to DM me if you're not a follower, but of course if you're following me here, go ahead and follow me there, or if you're subbed here, go ahead and follow me there. And then you can just send me a DM. It's the easiest way. They're encrypted now. I don't know how great the encryption is, but guys are digging through it. Seems pretty good, as it is open source. So yeah, you can go ahead and just hit me up there. All right, I'm going to keep the microphone hot, as they say, and we're just gonna get this rolling here in just a moment. Let's bring the music all the way down. Hello, I see a bunch of people piling in over there on the Parsec screen shares. Hello guys, how are you? Yep, I'm gonna get rolling here in just a minute. Yeah, the start screen broke. It's not your it's not your feed. I don't know what's going on with this this piece of software, with the streaming software right now, but yeah, it just kind of broke the animation and whatnot. But we will get rolling here in just a minute. I see some new faces over there. Hello. Excellent. So for those that are new, when we get started here, I'm just going to kind of roll through my my Monday intro for Macro Mondays, and then we're going to get into some Bitcoin analysis. We'll get to some of the technical analysis. If you guys have questions, go ahead and ask over there. There's a chat box that Jimmy set up, and you can just submit your questions in there, and I can read through them. It's a little bit different on YouTube. Do we have anybody? Got a few people on YouTube. Hi Jedi, hi Spin. I see a few others. They're just not chatting yet. But yeah, I'm sure that as I'm streaming, there's probably going to be some more that come in. So I'm going to jump back and forth for those that are new over there. I'm going to be jumping back and forth. I will do some questions after the initial analysis from you guys, and then I'll take some questions from YouTube as well. You're welcome, Spin. All right, so well, you can obviously hear me, so hopefully the microphone sounds good. And we're gonna get rolling here in just a second. Let's set the screen up. All right, so let's go over here and we are going to get rolling. Hello and welcome to Macro Mondays here on Landy's Crypto Corner. I am your host, Landy. Today is July 31st, 2023. And on Macro Mondays, what we do is we take a look at the longer term timeframes and weave that into our daily analysis. We do have a monthly close coming in at the close of today's daily candle. And we are right now looking at the Bitcoin in 60 seconds charts. If you guys have watched my channel prior, you'll know that there is a short series that I do daily that is called Bitcoin in 60 seconds, where I go over a bit of analysis based on the daily closing timeframes. So we are going to start today by looking at the monthly, and we will get back to that Bitcoin in 60 seconds chart here soon. I wanted to just look at the Bollinger Bands prior to tonight's closure, and then we'll follow up on Wednesday after we get that full Tuesday session in with another live stream where we'll take a look at the updated Bollinger Bands and momentum pivots, what RSI is looking like, candle structure, stuff like that. So as it stands right now, Bitcoin is still trading above the basis band here, and that is coming in at 28,532. So I would prefer to see this close above here by end of day for the bulls at least, and myself for my hodl bags. But if it does come down further, good chance to get in at some lower prices if you are longer term, and get some nice short trades down if it does head down there, and maybe even below. Now, the monthly, we can see the wick highs coming in at that 31.8 area. And as it stands right now, if that area was breached to the upside, especially on a longer time frame close, I doubt it's going to happen today. Never know. But, you know, there's the close open structure over here at 31.8. And then there's the closes over here at $35,000. I do suspect that when the momentum and bands and everything update at the close today, that the upper first standard deviation, which is currently at 37,600 or so, which is this close open breakdown from this low side structure, the low's at 38.5, and the close open here is at 37.5 or so. And that is where the upper first standard deviation of the Bollinger Bands is currently coming in. I do suspect this will head down to that $35,000 low area. You know, maybe more. This does look like it's quickly compressing. We'll have to, follow up with this on the Wednesday live stream. Now, the lower first standard deviation is currently at 19,400 to 500 area. I would expect this to head up somewhere around the 20 to 21.5, and on the high end, I'd expect it to head into this low over here at the breakout area, which was at 23,000 to 23,500 or so. That would be aggressive, but if it does, just slightly move up, I'd be looking for 20 to 21, maybe 21.5, and then add another 1,500 to $2,000 on that if it does aggressively compress. Now, that's going to be based on the BBWP read, which one of the reasons why I'm a little unsure about this one right now is because BBWP is no longer declining, it's flattened. So typically the Bollinger Bands aren't going to get as deep a compression. They still will tick towards the basis band, but in this case, I'm expecting volatility to tick up, and then the moving average to come down a little bit. I don't think we're going to be seeing a cross yet. I do think that we are going to see a little bit more sideways and possibly up here on the volatility metric, as long as Bitcoin is on or above the basis band here. So that's kind of it for the monthly. We'll have to check back in on that on Monday. Let's go ahead and head down the time frames here and take a look at what is closing this coming with this coming weekly candle. I know that we had some larger closures. The 4-week will be closing in 2 weeks from now. We had the 3-week just open, so that closed with yesterday's weekly candle. We can see that on the 4-week or 3-week here, that it is still above the upper first standard deviation of the Bollinger Bands. That's coming right into the support resistance area that I've been talking about. Below price action at 28 to 28.4 to 6 on the daily. You got the weekly at 28, daily's at 28.4 to 6. And if things did head up from the 3-week perspective, you can see that the upper second is right at $33,000. I don't really have a strong opinion as to whether or not this is going to become relevant if Bitcoin heads up. But I do think that it's rare that you see a compression on a 3-week and then an expansion without closes above or below, the second standard deviations. In this case, it would favor the upside because it is above the basis, which, by the way, is coming in at 23,500, right above the breakout on the 3-week chart. So keep that in mind. And the basis, of course, on the next closure, I would expect to be around the low side structure here at around $24,000 to $25,000. And currently, that upper first coming into that very important area at that 28 to 28.4 to 6 area that I've been calling out. If that area is tagged and this holds up, and the daily and 2-day and everything start to turn back up, or if it doesn't get tagged and things do start to turn back up, this would be something to pay attention to on the 3-week. I would expect some closures when you see this kind of a compression, some closures either above or wicks into if things did head up and especially get above the wick highs at 31.8. Now for momentum though, momentum is slowing down. On the 3-week here, you can see there is an initial cross down in the overbought zone, and the momentum pivot is at $30,000, not too far away from price action. I'm not as concerned about this because when you look at the monthly, for instance, nice upside slope, momentum pivots at 19K. I'm not looking at this as like a death sentence. At least not yet. We have to see structure break in order for these things to become relevant. Otherwise, they can come down and then bullish or reset and curl right back up. So $30,000 will be the pivot there. The 2-week here, we're looking at Bitcoin kind of hovering around that first standard deviation. Hello, Roka. And that first standard deviation, upper first in this case, is right there at 29,300 or so. It's 29,326, but it is moving with price ever so slightly here on the 2-week chart. And we did just get this close open in yesterday's weekly close. So to the upside, we're looking at that upper second standard deviation at around $34,000. And that's where the time frames closer to price action are going to be a little bit more relevant and helpful when evaluating something like looking at that 3-week where the upper second is at the 33K area. Now the basis band has moved up into the low side structure here at the actual wick low area around 24,500. You can probably give it some room. When price is heading down, it's at 24.5. If price does head up, it's likely to adjust itself in real time for the bands, and the basis would likely tick up to around the lows here between 24.7 to the close opens here at 26,350 or so. Now, the lower first is above the 200 EMA on the 2-week here, and that is coming in at around that $19,000 area. That is not an area that you want to see get tagged. I'll be honest with you. It means that things are going to be, it doesn't mean that it wouldn't be a good buy. It just means that things will be on the lows for a very extended period of time, in my opinion. So that is something to pay attention to. The weekly, of course, the basis band actually didn't move as much as I thought it might. It flattened and came up slightly to 28,500. So it's right in that daily support zone area that I call out in those Bitcoin in 60 seconds videos, even not 50. They have been 50 lately though. And that is at, 28, it's actually 28,577. So almost 28.6, kind of the top side of the wicks over here. Basis band coming in slightly above there. Now the upper first standard deviation is at $30,000. So we kind of saw that a lot of these areas that need to be reclaimed in and around that $30,000 pivot. And that is the low side structure on the weekly as well here, around 30,000 to 30,100 or so, I would say. The upper second standard deviation is up there at 31,400. Now we do see a pretty nice compression on the bands here, and I do want to call this out. I have the 200s on this chart, and I'll zoom in a bit so that it's easier for you to see. But if the basis is lost there at 28,600 and it does break down, doesn't bounce from there, wick under it, and then get bought back up, then I would be targeting the lower first area, which is now, I thought this was going to tick up to at least 27.5, and it barely moved. It just came up to 27,134, and then we have the 200 simple moving average above it by about $100 at 27,236. So this area would be a big area of interest, and then it just so happens that we have the lower second standard deviation and the 200 EMA coming right in line with each other here at that 25,600 to 25,800 area. And this is pretty important because this would be around that low side structure. The other day I did mention this when evaluating some of the weekly outlook there on Saturday prior to the Sunday close. In the Bitcoin in 60 seconds videos, there was a weekly that I stuck in there as well. So that is something to pay attention to. I'm not even looking for these targets until we see some kind of a test of the basis. And I'm not totally convinced with the way that price action is going right now that if it does not get movement today or tomorrow, or I would say by Wednesday close, if we don't see that area tagged, I would be looking for things to try for the upside. And I'm going to show you here in just a moment why. But as we go down the time frames here, you can see that the basis has lost its little bit of a negative slope there. And it, for the 5-day here, rather, it is at 28,500. So you got 28.5, 28.6 area coming in across the board as a major pivot. And that's going to be, it's going to be a crucial area if Bitcoin were to get there. So, but if things start turning before then, I would be aware of, again, where the upper first is here on the 5-day, as it will be closing in 3 days on the Thursday candle. And this is coming in at 30,164. It's not going to be quite as relevant on the day-to-day price action, but I would note it. And you can see that below the basis band, we have the 200 EMA coming in at a daily level that I've called out prior across many videos and streams. And this is coming in at 27,400. Which is right in between a 27,250 and 27,500 support area. And then we have the lower first coming in there at 26,800, 26,900 or so. And there is, there's an argument to be made that there's good support around that 26,800 to 27K as well. But if we do start seeing 30K get regained, I would not be entirely bearish on things in terms of reclaiming this range. I would be looking back in the range for price action to try up further. But if we do see that wick low at 88, I would be looking for that basis band to get tagged. And I kind of suspect that that would provide a bit of a bounce. Now on the 3-day here, now this is not closing today. This is going to close with Tuesday's candle even, as I fail to get words out of my mouth here. We have the 200s coming into each other here on the 3-day as well. And I do like my 200 crosses. So the EMA getting the SMA swooping under it would indicate to me that this area over here is good support should it be tested. And that's coming in at 27,600 and 28K respectively. Now the basis here on the 3-day, if that is dropped, of course, that's coming in at 29K. Now, if it is dropped on a close specifically, that would open up targets down, right? And most likely we would see targets down to that 28 to 28.6 area. But, as long as it closed back up above the basis in the next 3-day candle, or, throw one candle down, hit support, and then come back up, then I would be looking for things to try to reverse and go for that upper first, which is right in a bearish retest zone at just above the high side closes here on the 3-day and daily for that matter at around that 30,800 area. Above there, you can see the 3-day gives a lot of room to the upside up to around that 32,700 or 800. So about $1,000 markup above the wick highs there. And, it's got a nice slope to the actual basis band and the bands themselves. So, I would be keeping that in mind, is the actual slope of the moving averages, along with the fact that there is low BBWP. So we're getting into some more relevant time frames. We should look at BBWP here. We see BBWP is setting up for a move. I don't think it's ready yet. I think if this was going to close on Tuesday, we'll see the close on Friday and evaluate where this is, as I will be streaming on Friday as well. And we'll check in on Wednesday to see what this updates to. You can also see that the Stoke is pointed down. 31K is the pivot there, pretty far away at the moment. But being above the basis band and even all the way down to the lower first, which is coming in that 27 to, you could call it, 27.5 at around the 200s, although that would be slightly under the 200s there. It's still fine in terms of its look from the volatility perspective. So I would have no issues there if it did do that, and probably get a nice bounce as well. It's more about what does it find as resistance back to the upside in terms of structural and band based. And in this case, low BBWP, if it does bounce off that basis, and if it really starts to get a deep compression, then it could even get that lower first further up, tag that, and then move up. Then that would maintain trend integrity. You can see that even on the 3-day here, you can run from one side to the other as long as it's holding support. This tends to act as a reversal zone. That's that second standard deviations to the upside and downside either are going to be reversals or continuations, especially when evaluating them around a support. This was right into support, reversed, hit the upside, and did not close above this wick high. So we have not seen any 3-day closures above 31K. Therefore, can't really look for continuation, right? And it was up against the upper second. This is a pretty easy call right here. That's where that 31.8, if it didn't close up there, that's where I had said, beware of range deviations, deviations in the lower term timeframes, and then right back into the range. And that's what we saw on the daily. 2-day, nice compression. We are seeing a bit of expansion now on the bands. But again, this is right on support areas. This high side structure over here at the lower second. One of the things that we might see is we might just see it grind its way down if it doesn't just drop. Lower second standard deviation on the 2-day is at 29K. So if we did see a closure below there, I would be that would be by end of day today, I would be looking for this to head down. Now, I'm also looking for this to get another expansion down. So I do suspect that the lower second is going to come right into that daily support zone. And this might be a little bit easier to show on the Bitcoin in 60 seconds chart. I would expect in the next closure for the 2-day lower second to get expansion somewhere around the wick low to the daily support zone down here at 4 to 6 or so. And it might come in slightly under there, but that does open up this target down here at the daily support. If Bitcoin can regain that lower first, of course, that would be above the overhead resistance here at 29.425 at these wick lows, this wick low and this guy over here, which is this daily support area over here. And, I would be looking, now, of course, the closes on the daily are at 29.5 or so here. They are lower at around that 29,300 area. And you can even use that as a 2-day closing validation. If you do see closes back above there, it's likely that we're going to see closes in and around and or above this overhead resistance at 29.425. That would be above, and then it's got to get above, rather, the lower first standard deviation, although I do think if Bitcoin closes below the lower first, again, I think that the lower second's going to head down to somewhere around 28.8, 28.7, and this daily support area at 28.4 to 6, we'll call it. Now, that is likely going to see the lower first standard deviation head right into this overhead resistance. So I do think closes back above 29.4 to 5 area, and we will go test in and around the low side structure at 30K to the basis band at around 30,000 to 30,300 at that weekly overhead resistance. And, and then we evaluate from there. Now, the 2-day is posing an interesting setup because it is right against the lower second standard deviation. We have not seen a close. And if we do not see a close, it's going to expand away and give Bitcoin the opportunity to test into it. If it doesn't close below, observe where Stoke is. Stoke is starting to enter the oversold zone. Now, again, it can stay here for a long time, but I want to be very specific about my criteria here. If we do see it close below the lower first today, the 2-day lower second will come down. Bitcoin can then safely test into it and bounce off of it, and it can still act like a reversal, especially if it starts to get down towards this daily support area. As long as it's closing above that lower second, it maintains its ability to act as a reversal area, especially when you're in and around supports. And that's where I would keep a very close eye on the Stoke momentum indicators, as the pivot here is going to be 29,400 to 500. So back above 29,460 today. I don't think that's going to happen. That number will continue down, likely to right around where Bitcoin is currently trading. So I would pay very close attention to that. That does mean that by Wednesday, we'll have a close of the 2-day today and then a close on Wednesday. And then we have some other timeframes closing on Wednesday as well. That if Bitcoin is trading back above 29.4 to 5, possibly 30K, then I would be looking for the top side of this range above to get ran again. And of course, then there's the daily. So I will have a Bitcoin in 60 seconds video later today. But as noted, it's come up, it's tested this overhead resistance. If it can push past there, the basis is currently at 29,800. I'd be looking there to around these close opens at 30 to 30,100 and up to that weekly at 30,300 where the upper first is coming in. You want to see a close above, not a swing of 30,400 if it heads up there. And that would open up the possibility of going and testing around these highs, 30,500 to 800, and the upper first at the upper second rather at 31K. So keep that in mind. That's really all I got for Bitcoin right now. Let me jump over and take a look at chat real quick here. Can jump in for a few minutes. Hi, Bobby. Roka's here. Um, Weekly basis, weekly EMA 21,200. Clearly, your next support's at 28.6, 27.8, 27.2. Yes, I'm not really looking at those right now, buddy, but I do know where they are. For those of you that are using the Landy Bands indicator, you can turn on and customize any of the EMAs or MAs, and you can change the boxes from SMA to EMA. And then you can just type in any number. You can put the label on the chart, and then you can turn them on and off individually, or you can turn them off on and off globally, both the labels and the actual moving averages plotted. But yes, I'm aware of where they are on some of those longer term timeframes. I'm really focusing in on the volatility piece right now because it is going to be important. That weekly compression on the bands is significant, right? It is, from second to second. Let's go ahead and actually turn off the EMAs for a moment. If you take the second standard deviations, I believe this is pretty darn tight. I mean, I could do, what's it, this? Take and, nope, I don't have the alt to do it. Come on. I'm controlling other things on my computer by hitting that hotkey, so let's not do that. You had a 26% zone between the 2 second standard deviations back here in October of 2022. And we just had, let's turn that off, around a compression of 18% or so. So that's pretty significant when looking at the weekly. That does give me the bias that, Bitcoin can knock around in here for a little while in between the upper and lower seconds. But as soon as it breaches one of them, expansion is probably going to be pretty severe. And there will probably be pretty severe reversals and returns to the mean as well. So, that's both to the upside and downside. And to be quite honest, if things did head down to the lower second on the weekly, I would be looking for expansion and then a pretty nasty return to the mean, because of all of the support buildup down here, and vice versa. I mean, to the upside too. I honestly would be looking for a pretty gnarly rejection there, at least first pass, and then we come back to it after that. If it just starts blasting off to the upside, that's a good sign that the bigger players are stepping in to the market prior to some of the more important things that are coming up on the regulatory side of things. So we'll be able to gauge that on our charts anyway. So I wouldn't be concerned about the news. Be concerned about where the chart is. Let's see. Yeah, so basically you're seeing the same thing I am. If things hang around, especially through today's close and Wednesday's 2-day close, and it doesn't break down to the actual support down below at 28 to 28.6 or so, then I would be looking for things to test back up. Doesn't mean that they're going to fly back all the way to the upside and take out the highs, but, it is... it'd be concerning for bears if they can't push this into a support area. I mean, technically it is in some support zones, but there's major support a little bit further down, including that weekly, which is a high side structure. So let's go ahead and glance at traditional markets real quick here. Get a little bit of follow up. So we hit the target to the upside here on Dow. We are seeing volatility come down. This is at that 35.15 to 35,631 or so. Hit that area pretty much bang on. And we see that volatility is cooling down while Dow is above the upper first standard deviation. Now, I do want to say that this likely means that there's going to be a pretty big move and it can come in either direction. So when you see that buildup, you can get moves all the way back to the basis that then just, shoot back to the upside, because anything that heads down is going to be mean reversion. We see the basis is now above the breakout here, this local structure breakout, where the wick high is coming in at 34,725. So, that was kind of the big breakout that was being awaited by many. So, and then we've got the high side structure before the actual all-time highs. So not abnormal to see this pull back. I'm sure the daily's probably ready to shift down a little bit. Yeah, 35,580 is the number to beat there. Trading about 100 points below currently. Not really looking for much if it is above 35,216. Below there, I'd be looking for it to come back to somewhere around the basis and the supports down here. And again, that's coming in at 34,800 or so. When looking at NASDAQ, NASDAQ's kind of painting the picture that it may want to actually turn its momentum and retest that upper second. It's pretty far above its, kind of overhead resistance that I pointed out a while ago. It could come all the way back to 15,300 and it's still fine. Although it might, if it bounced from there, you'd want to watch this this area here, because it would be a structure change, lower high, lower low, unless it closed back inside of this wick low here at 15,367. Right now it's hanging out above the upper first, and that's coming in at 15,700 or so. Upper second right there at the highs at around 15,951. So 16K on NAS, likely sees things push further up to the all-time high area. It's basically almost got into this wick high over here. So I would look for that area to get tested. Maybe a little bit of, choppiness. Yeah, momentum is shifting up on any closes above and remain above there, above 15,644. So, it's not far away, but that's a fairly large move for NAS. That would be taking out this order block candle from Friday. So below here, which is 15,617. Actually, no. What did I say the pivot was? It's 644. Yeah, so it would be that area. So below the open of Friday's candle, and I would expect this to test the low side around the 15.5, 15.4 to 15.5 around the basis band here. When looking at, volatility's headed down while it's above the basis. If it gets a nice bounce from here, it's likely gonna try up further. If it gets under the basis, watch out. There is support, but watch out, because it's probably headed for another drawdown of 250 to maybe even 500 points from the basis, at the lower second there. When looking at something like SPY, and I'm going to go and look at just SPY here for a moment. I've seen a few say that, the high's in. This is not a high end yet. Back below, the way that this is actually painting its structure, it's got to either do another daily candle structure that puts in a high, but this is not a high just yet. It would have to be back below like 452. Trading at 456 above the upper first here at 455.41. This can still pull back to the basis, and it's absolutely fine. This could pull back all the way to the lower first and be fine at 443. So BBWP also resetting to 0 right by the upper first. This might just grind itself up and sideways, maybe a quick mean reversion back to the basis, maybe even through it and down to the lower first. But I would expect this to actually continue to test in and around this area and possibly higher towards the actual all-time high. 461 to 462 is the number to beat for the upper second. Looks good. You know, I know that some of the longer-term time frames might be pressure down, but you know, it's just grinding that upper second standard deviation on the way up, and it's 455 is the weekly pivot anyway. So, you know, if we did see the weekly close, you know, on Friday below that 455 region, then that would be a little concerning. But for the weekly, but even then, it can hang out up there for an extended period of time. And because of the way that BBWP has reset while it's above the basis, I really wouldn't be concerned about this having some kind of a major pullback, like a macro pullback, unless it started to expand below the lower second, along with, you know, and even then, along with some of the higher term timeframes turning. It's got good support down below. Doesn't mean it's going to hold, but it's got good support down below. And I would be looking for this to eventually make its way up to, well, it's already almost got there. So the upper second standard deviation, if it just hangs out above the upper first and grinds the upper second, it's likely to get to this this lower high area. This, well, it was a higher high in relation to the structure, but it was lower low, higher high. Yeah, so not too concerned about this right now. Let's go ahead and check on currency and bonds. So we've got Dixie trying back up. So easy play. Talked about this on Friday. I think it was already turning into a doji on Friday. And, you know, below there, which is right around the basis at 101.33 or so, 101.35 on the wick low, I would expect things to, you know, I would expect this to put in a high, come back down and retest the breakdown zone at around 180 cents. Above the wick high here at around 102, I would hunt that upper first right there at 102.40 to around the 102.50 area just above it at this low, because this would be a reclaim of this low side structure here. So we target the next low up and we get a zone around that upper first to that low side structure. So 102.40 to 102.5 if it does take that area out. And then, of course, if it does reclaim that low, we have the next low slightly above there, right around 103, and then the upper second standard deviation coming right in around that 103.30 to 103.50. So another dollar markup if it could reclaim 102, and then the upper first at around 102.40 to 50. I would look for it to try for a markup to around 103.50 or so over time, and just take it kind of 50 cents at a time. Now, we do know that there's some stuff going on in Japan, and what they're going to be doing is they're going to be bond buying, so they're doing their own QE. Now, that they can buy bonds, they have to do the transaction through yen, and then it's got to make its way over to the USTs. So we'll see what happens and which USTs they're buying. So far, we've seen some selling pressure coming into today, getting a little bounce, maybe even a double bottom on the 10-year now. So yield, I do think, might end up turning into a double top here. And that is only going to occur, so 3.84%, it's at 3.96. That will only occur if it fails to break this 4% or so high on 10-year yields. So I would keep an eye on that. Bank of Japan has indicated that they're interested in their 10-year and the UST 10-year. So That would be pressure up on the 10-year, which would be pressure down on yield. So if it is going to be a double bottom, it's likely this will be a double top on yield, right? That's kind of just how it works. It's an inverse correlation. So that is something that I will be watching this week pretty closely, as it will have some implications rather for the longer term as we head into the end of this quarter into the fourth quarter. So something to pay attention to, eyes on, as we head into the fourth quarter. Everybody gets bored in the summer and stops paying attention. So unless something drastic happens, and still people aren't paying attention most of the time. And gold, let's go ahead and look at gold, because I said I was going to look at it on Friday and then I skipped it. Gold bouncing off the basis band on the daily. Looks good if it can get above that upper first and take out this open from Thursday of last week around 1972. I'd look for it to run its local highs around 1980 to that upper second at around 1990, maybe even 2K. What's it looking like on the daily momentum? Not inspiring right now, below 1969, but if it does close a green candle today, you'll start to see that turn. Also bouncing off the basis and reclaiming the upper first would be a good indication that it's going to try somewhere in and around its current high side structure. And if it did start closing above there, my bet is that BBWP starts to agree with it, but I'd be aware of a possible reversal off the upper second, and that would beget prices heading down. So just keep that in mind. The setup's not there yet. Got to reclaim that upper first. And I would maybe give it a day or two to see what it's going to do around the top side. If you do see it at the top side of this range, low BBWP, I don't think that it would be ready if it ran right to that upper second right away, as BBWP and moving average are still about 10 points away from each other, a little bit more than 10 points, 12 points away from each other. I'd want them to be a little bit closer, maybe check on it close today and into Wednesday, which is when I'll be streaming again anyway. So that's my take on gold. Now let me go ahead and take a look at the Parsec chats over here. Yes. Okay. So you guys agree. Thank you. But if you see something that you don't agree with, you need to let me know. And for you guys over in YouTube land, how are you doing over here? Go ahead and wave, say hi, type in there. I see quite a few people in here on my panel, but I've only seen a couple of you guys chatting. If you're not in a chatty mood, that's okay. But if you are over there and you have any questions, comments, suggestions, let me know. Let's take a look here at some of the altcoin market. And we'll just take a look at total, because that's another thing that I believe I didn't actually check up on Friday that I did want to look at. And, you're going to get the head and shoulders guys telling you that it's going to come back to this low, which, it would actually be this low over here at around 1 trillion, 1.62 trillion. But, daily momentum disagrees with an aggressive downside move unless it starts failing below the lower second right now. It might, if it hangs out here, takes too long, then that might curl over, and then you get that this was a bearish reset and then head back down. So that's what I'd be looking for on the momentum chart for total market cap. And of course, that would be Bitcoin also moving down as well, because Bitcoin is on the daily looking the same way, right? And in general, it should. It's when it disagrees, that you should be paying attention. But at the moment, both total and Bitcoin are up. And of course, closes below 29K would turn this back down. That'd be, this consolidation against resistance. It fails, loses the lower side, and then heads down to support. So that's kind of what I'd be looking for on total market cap. Now, if you do see total move up above its local wick highs, and especially reclaim that basis band, because it's setting up a range right now at around $1.122 trillion, and the top side here at $1.197 trillion. The basis band would be a good indication that we need to at least start looking back to the top side of the ranges where things are trading just below in most cases for most coins. And in this case, that's about 1.16 trillion above the basis, which is just slightly above that 1.5758 trillion area on the wick highs here. And that would be reclaiming this low or this order block area. It's not really a low, it's a consolidation move down. So total 2, I suspect, in and around the lower first. Stoke is tentatively up, not a very strong signal. 574 billion, 572 to keep it turned to the upside, almost 573. And it's, it might be pushing that issue here, but you need fully confirmed crosses. And realistically, it's below 568 at this open. That I would be paying attention, because that would be below the lower first and this low, and somewhere around the low side wick where the lower second is, because I honestly would be looking for an initial reversal off that area in the lower term timeframes, and then we come back to it on the daily. So in a compression like this, I wouldn't necessarily be looking for it to just nuke through 560 billion, but that's not out of the question. And to the upside, it's 580. For the basis, and then this last wick high is coming in at 580 billion 682 million. So that is basically looking at above 585 or so. And total 3. This actually looks like a strong consolidation. This looks like a strong consolidation to a possible move up. Yeah. It's still headed down for total 3. 351 billion, almost 351 and a half to turn this back to the upside. Currently at around 348.8. And that is going to be... So 351, reclaiming the basis basically, and that would be, it's going to be reclaiming the basis back above the basis at around 352. That is going to rise though to that wick high. And if it does take out that wick high at like 356, then I would be looking for things to head back up and for Stoke to turn. For right now, looking like it wants to continue to test in and around that lower first. And that is coming in at 345, and so another 3 billion or so down. And then the actual lows here are coming in at 340. And if we did see things heading down this way, I would look for it to head to that lower second, which is coming in right around this support area at 340 billion, slightly under there on the close opens. So that is interesting to me, because with Stoke kind of giving us some indications that it is still in a dicey area, but pointed up. If things do not break through their overhead resistances, then I would look for them to head down. And if they do not break down from the lows, and regain those overhead resistances, especially on Bitcoin, I would look for a wider move up, and then come back to it from there. All right, so let's go ahead and take a look at chat over here. Bitcoin has been setting higher lows, about 5K apart. Yeah. So that means that fake out to the downside, run in. Oh, because the last one was 26, so like a 29. Close the weekly at 32. Already closed at 26. Yeah, I mean, if you're looking at statistics, yeah, in terms of momentum and divergence and volatility, well, you're looking at, because it's trend support and resistance, right? So we're trending into a support zone. It is getting front ran currently, and then your volatility are going to determine your momentum. And in this case, is Bitcoin in for a wider correction down past 28 to 28.6, or even 29K? It definitely paints that picture looking at the weekly. So I could tell you that looking at the weekly right now, it it paints the picture that it wants to head down to at least test those areas. That doesn't mean it's going to, though. And that those areas being the basis band, and it could even test into that lower first very easily from there. Still remains entirely bullish, even the lower second, although that's dangerous because if it loses that area, especially on a close, we're looking for that wick low to get ran at 24,800 or so, or 24,750, and then lower, quite honestly, significantly lower. So, and that would be your, who knows how deep it would go, but that would be kind of like, the 2019 into 2020 run up. I'm not seeing the same things that I saw then on the charts here, at least not right now. It's not the same magnitude of a move up, in my opinion, either. So yes, it is. We're trading, roughly 100% off the lows. So I just wouldn't be. I'm not looking at things like, if there's a wider pullback, I'm not looking at things as like completely falling apart. I'm looking at a very long form of accumulation. That's what I'd be looking for. And then we come back to it, fourth quarter into first quarter of next year. If it does run up further, I would be looking for a pretty violent correction down before continuation. Just understand that. I mean, if we head up and test these lows at 35 or 38, or people want it to run like 42 and 45 and 47 and 48, you're going to see a very, 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 very violent correction from there. And I don't think it's ready for any of that just yet. Anyway, if this week it takes out 31K, there's the potential from the weekly chart, and the monthly would agree with it. But I'm just not. There's more time. What a lot of people think that it's, and I know that even people that I share on Twitter think that we're due for like 10K candles here pretty soon. And I think if we're going to see that, it's probably closer to, if we were going to see that this year, I'm not seeing the setup for it just yet. I'd be looking for it more towards Q4 if it was going to happen this year, and likely it's only really going to happen Q1, Q2, into Q3, Q4 of next year. But it's just, I don't really have an opinion one way or another. I'm also we've observed lengthening cycles as well, so longer accumulation, bigger boom, to be quite honest. And I could really see Bitcoin running all the way back up from here as well. Just this from a structural point of view. The argument is that this is a 5-wave structure and you're looking for an ABC. But I don't know. The fifth wave didn't go deep enough, in my opinion, from a fib basis. So, but that's an opinion, and there's a lot of varying opinions on wave patterns. So, and I'm not really a wave guy, so I don't care. I'm a volatility guy. I mean, I do care, but in terms of trading, I don't. For the longer term, it's always been an interest of mine. But yeah, do we have any other? Bam, 9K. Yeah, no. Sorry, I don't think that's happening. If it was going to happen, I think that would have, the opportunity was already presenting itself. And if 9K was going to happen, there's a sea change in crypto. And I don't think that the sea change would would put Bitcoin at a disadvantage. Let's put it that way. So I just I'm not saying that it's not out of the cards. Anything can happen, but um, if we saw a massive shakeup in crypto from the financial institution side of things, I don't think that Bitcoin's the loser in that scenario. I think most of that liquidity comes flooding right into Bitcoin as a safe haven, and then everything else kind of gets ZK rolled up. Get a ZK roll up going on. Everything is rolled up. And the real big shot across the bow would be USDT. But I don't think that would be, I think that would be a slow siphon off to something like USDC or another stable or a FedNow CBDC. Look, never ever say never. I want to be very clear. Never ever say never. It's always the things that you think will never happen are typically the things that always happen. So don't jinx it. Never say never. Especially in the markets, man. All right, let's go with some lower term time frame stuff here. I suspect that if Bitcoin did not close below the lower second or the upper second here, if it does close below the lower second here, I would look for expansion down to the lows. 29K again at this wick low over here, to the actual lows at around 28.8, and might set things on the path to go test that downside support at 28.4 at the daily and 28K at the weekly. So keep that in mind. It's got to close in the next couple of minutes below 29.192, so basically 29.2, and then I'd be looking for that. Momentum 29.261, that would turn down as well on expansion, so that's where I would be looking for some of the downside support areas to get hit. And this is a pretty tight compression on the 4 hour, so beware. Be aware, not beware. 6 hour, I believe, is probably looking the same way. 29.225, Stokes already crossed down. That would need to be crossed out. Just fully confirmed cross. It's going to start getting expansion as well here soon. It's already expanding. It's not to a level that I'm interested in just yet, but yeah, so I do think if we do see a close with expansion, I'd be watching the lows, 29 to 28.8. And I wouldn't be taking that as like, oh, these are going to break down. If they do, though, probably going to see some aggressive downside moves. And I would be aware of bounces that reclaim the wick low at 28.8 on a close on the medium-term time frames below daily, like a 4 hour and or the daily itself, because that would just be a swing of the low. So be aware of that. And okay, so I've got a lot of questions from you guys over on Parsec that I think are probably better addressed if I just if I answer some of those after the stream. Yeah, those are a little bit maybe too personally identifiable. So yeah, I will I'll just hang with you guys after the stream ends. And for you guys over here on YouTube, anybody have any questions, any comments? And before I head out, I can look at ETH. Yeah, let's go ahead and take a look at ETH. This is going to be Bitstamp. I don't want Bitstamp. Let's go to Coinbase. Yeah, ETH looks headed down on the 6 hour. Let's look at the daily. Daily looking like it's rejecting the a little bit of a meme trend line here. 1849 would cross it down. It's currently trading at 1856. I do suspect that if it can kind of break out of this trendline regression test, yeah, I would actually look for this to kind of hang on to its lower first, maybe come down, run that low again that it put in over here on a close at 1850. Wick low is coming in at 1832. If it doesn't pass that, not interested. And there is plenty of support down here at around that 1830 area. If it does nuke through there and specifically break down below the lower second at around 1820 to 1816 at the wick low, I'd be looking for this thing to work its way down significantly lower, 1800 into the mid 1700 area around this low side structure at the wicks. I'm not seeing what I want to see just yet, but it is pushing that lower first, low BBWP. So, just keep these things in mind that I'm not interested in it right now, but if it does start breaking through and breaking down, if it continues to run this low side, then I would be looking for either a reversal off the lower second or expansion past with some much deeper price targets to the downside. Back above the basis and this little consolidation, I would actually take, just above the basis at 1892. I would be looking for this thing to run back up to around 1920 to 1940 or so at the overhead resistance there. So pretty simple setup on this. We can get early indications. 12 hours pointed down. 1870 would turn that back up by close of day today. Doesn't look too encouraging right now. 1876 on the 8 hour, 1876 on the 4 hour. I'm sorry, 6 hour, and the 4 hours 1866. That's $10 off and headed down a little bit further along with Bitcoin. So I've got to start going to lower term timeframes. 1865, still about that $10 buffer for the bears. 1863, when you start getting into the 2 hour hourly, that's where I would be cognizant of what's going on. 1855 on the hourly, it's headed into support. So if you do see the hourly turn, I would look for it to test back up around the 1860 to 1865 area where the basis is to the upper first, which is almost at 1870. So if it does hold on to this area on the hourly downside here, get a little double bottom on the hourly, reverse off that lower second, I would be looking, back above this high at around 1862 to 1864, 65 at the basis to 1870 at the upper first. Below 1870 in the hourly, it's still bearish. If it can break out above there and the upper second and reverse its downtrending structure, then I would be looking for it to hold and head up. But right now, I'm not seeing that. On ETH, the weekly is, it's a consolidation. None of this concerns me, really. Are you looking at a trend line from the lows? Hi, Baba. You're talking about from the lows. Yeah, I don't like trend lines like that. I mean, I understand it. It's overhead resistance at that point, but that's already been taken care of by the area that it broke down from. I understand what you're saying. If you're looking at, it depends on where you're looking and where you're drawing your trend line. Are you drawing closes from wicks? Are you drawing, what is it that you are drawing from? And that's why I don't like trend lines, because you can draw it from this most recent low side structure on the move up, and you can say, okay, it's trading below there. You can draw it from the wicks, and you can include closes where things, match up, but none of it, you know, technically from the lows, this thing could run all the way back to, 1600 and under, and it's fine. If you just take the wicks, if you take the last run up, a more uh, a higher angled trend line, you still have room from the wicks. If you're taking closes, there's no closes that have a valid trend line, in my opinion, from the weekly, from the start of price action, like all time, or the current lows. Oh, yeah, I know what you're talking about. It doesn't bother me. I know exactly what you're talking about. You're talking from the actual inception, which would be something that I'm not, it just does not interest me, because it's not a way, it is so macro in terms of a trend line that you might as well do spider lines, and pick every point, because long-term trend lines like that aren't going to necessarily give you much more than what you already have. And if you take the wick lows, which I have to actually do a good job of, and you take the closes, you're below the closes. I get it. Not below the wick lows. You're below the close. And you're in like this zone where when on log, gives you a lot of room to the downside, quite honestly, because it gives you room all the way to this consolidation area at around 1500. So, I mean, that's basically the same thing that we were looking at. And is it really bad? As for the severity of it, is it good? I mean, no. Is it really bad? No. Is there anything to make out of it that we don't already know, though? That's really what I'm interested in. Is it telling me anything that I'm not already looking for? For the longer term, quite honestly, no. I don't know what's ever going to happen with ETH. I'm not the biggest fan of ETH. I know that might offend some of you. I'm sorry, but I'm a Bitcoin guy. Buy more Bitcoin. But I'm just not. I'm not seeing anything that is telling me like, hey, what would, okay. So here's what would bother me on this. What would bother me is if we saw a major high put in below a trend line like this. So that's what would be like, hey, this is a major, like a macro high being put in below the low side trend line, because then that means that for the duration of however many years, you're probably looking at that asset having a pretty big cap on it. But trend lines continue on forever, especially when they're up and to the right like this. So, I really do. I see what you're getting at. It's below the trend line. It's been below there for, what is it, like almost a month, right? But it's not telling me too much different than what we'd be looking for. Is, if we did see daily downside expansion, I'm looking for things to run pretty deep, back to, some of the low side structure here. And quite honestly, that's around this high side structure as well, and this in the mid 1700s. But if it dropped that area, absolutely, I'd be looking at, you can use that trend line. I'm not saying don't use it, but the further out you go, and you're looking at this guy over here, this low, and you're looking basically at roughly $1,500. And then if it loses that, I mean, there's no other trend lines to go off of. So you're really looking at your horizontals. And I'd be looking back at the current low side structure at $1,000 and under. I don't. Something like has to like seriously break though for that to happen, in my opinion. And we could. I mean, you know what would do it? USDT getting served by the SEC and somebody going to jail, um, asset seizures and stuff like that. That's what would do it. Maybe even lower than those lows. Then that would probably kill off a lot of ETH and projects related to it. Especially rather considering what has been going on with a lot of the news making it out of, Armstrong over there, looking at Armstrong, for those of you guys over there, he was talking about when SEC basically told them that they can only list Bitcoin. Everything else is a security. That was an interview with the Financial Times. But, I mean, he's talking about the lawsuit. So, and of course, they have an active lawsuit against the SEC right now. And then they just signed a whole bunch of custodial and oversight. Oversight, Coinbase, and oversight. When I think oversight, I think Coinbase. But oversight for I guess monitoring the custodianship for the trust. I don't really know. Their language is a little bit too loose right now. They would likely have to reference a contract that they've signed. So that was a question from over there. So let's look back over here. Yeah, I see what you're saying, Roka, with the trend line though, for ETH. It just doesn't tell me anything different than what we're already observing happen. And I'm more interested in seeing the support areas and how they hold up over the next few days, because I do think that it is going to determine some of those longer term timeframes, especially as we head into the fourth quarter. But yeah, I mean, you could use it, but what happens when it gets below it? Like, is it zero? Maybe. What if that's the trend line? One of the guys over here says, "What if those are the trend lines, and below them, ETH goes to zero, and everything that you just said plays out?" Well, I don't know. I said some of that other stuff to you guys in private, so. But yes, maybe. I don't know. I've also talked about it with Mr. Roka. Him and I were discussing USDC, USDT stuff. When looking at, I made it. OMG. Oh, oh, you did make it. Hi, Cheryl. I'm still alive. Yeah. Let's see. When you said I made it, OMG, I wasn't thinking like, when I first read that, I was reading that as Omisigo or whatever the coin was when I first looked over. I was like, oh, so she wants me to chart OMG, but it's I made it. Oh my God. All right. So I like BTC and Sol. I just trade everything else. I don't hodl them. Yeah, Sol is okay. Doge might actually. Okay, so for you guys that maybe aren't on X, which is formerly Twitter, there's a lot of guys, like NFT God is just one of them, that are saying that they have that beta access and they're going to do something with tokens. And it reads, and I'm not really interested in his other stuff that's on here that he's talking about, because I just don't, it's all speculation, right? But he has indicated, and I don't think he's faking this either. I do think this is real because this is not the first person that has seen this, but he mentions that there is a coins tab in the beta. He goes on through to shill a bunch of shit, and then this is definitely made up. But X coin or whatever they want to call it, right? Now, I've already seen some of this before with the Twitter gold coins stuff. Now, what it will allow people to do is pay creators that they like. It's kind of like on YouTube when I hit like 500 subscribers, hopefully soon. You can subscribe to the channel and it gives me an income of whatever I set, or you can do super chats and stuff like that, which is where during live streams you can basically pay money for your chat to actually show up on the live stream. Or if it's a busy chat, which mine on YouTube are not. The one over there is going crazy. I don't know what you guys are talking about on Parsec chat over there, but the one on YouTube, not so much, as I just have a very small audience here. But this seems very similar to that, but in a stable of some sort. I imagine this is going to start out as a fiat conversion tool. So you buy coins and then you can get these X coins or some sort of a derivative thereof. This isn't the first time this has come up. And what I do suspect is going to happen is that whatever these coins are likely to be a stable coin on Doge. So BTC dropped a bit. What will happen next? Hi, Trillist. What do you mean? Well, we were taking a look at Bitcoin. I mean, the support area down below is, if it starts to break down here, it's got to run the lows at 29 to 28.8 at the wick low. If it breaks that area, we're looking down to 28.4 to 6 and 28K. Back above 29.4 to 5, looking for it to run up to the basis around 29.8 to 30K. And above there, we start looking at the weekly 30,300. Definitely needs to get above that 30,400. But what to kind of get back on to what I was saying, it's likely that you see some sort of a Litecoin, Dogecoin paired or chain sort of a stable, because I can't see Elon not using some sort of crypto as a stable. And this would also lend some credence to, their discussions in Congress about him starting a stable coin. It's probably because they know that he is. And we're starting to see that kind of stuff break open. And if it was a stable that was run on a Doge chain of some sort, or which is a Litecoin chain, this would have huge implications for Doge and Litecoin, respectively, as the chains would become very, very active. They already are. I mean, Litecoin's very active crypto and has a very active chain. So just need we just need to pay attention to those things if it does happen, because Litecoin, as it relates to Doge and some of the other derivative chains built on Doge. So I would be paying attention to that. Now that I do think, you're going to see a lot of speculators, especially because they're shit coins. So I do. Yeah, well, you got to remember, Dogecoin is built on Litecoin's network. You mine Dogecoin and Litecoin together, and you're taking up no more hash power. Well, I take that back. You kind of are taking a little bit more hash power, but it's not. The rewards are in sync with each other. Let's put it that way, because Doge is built on Litecoin. So just know that is the relationship between the two. And there has been stables tried on Litecoin prior, but before they even really launched, they kind of fell apart. If there's one guy that could do it, it's probably that guy. So, or he just develops his own chain and his own stable. If they're going to do some sort of a token system where you buy into these things and you get these tokens and then you can give them to other people on Twitter, it's going to change the game for a lot of crypto, just so you guys know. Who knows when that's going to happen, though? A lot of this stuff, they could be beta testing stuff for 6-8 months. But because the bill did pass, those two bills did pass, it's likely that that he could be in the clear if he did something like that. Trillist said up or down, basically, or what happened next, or what will happen next. I answered that. Elon might start a stablecoin. Yeah. Maybe. We'll see. That's kind of the way that this is what he's implying. This is what a lot of these guys, NFT God and a whole bunch of these other personalities on Twitter are implying. And, you know, you can speculate all you want, but until something actually happens, and we're likely to see the chart turn, but it's going to be difficult to determine a Litecoin or Dogecoin turn if that were the case. If it's a legit, or, you know, people just pumping the news, pumping fake news or whatever it might be. Because nothing's happened. And Doge, by the way, is headed down. So Doge is headed down below 8 and something cents. So that's going to be what's the actual number there? Yeah, basically below 8 cents. It's headed down. Likely to retest around 7.3 to 0.5 and then go from there. And this was a nice move up. A lot of people forgot, you know, they're like, oh, Doge is like, it's doing amazing until you zoom out. Then you're like, oh, it's just trapped in a big old range. So it's hit all of our it hit our primary target to the upside. It swung it, because I haven't looked at this in a while. It swung that low, rejected. Now it's got to hold on to, you know, about 7.3 to 7.5 cents. If it can do that, it gets another run at 8 cents or so. And then we come back to it. Below there, it's back to lows. You're looking at 7 cents, 6.5 cents, and then under. In fact, yeah, 7 cents, 6.5 cents, and then probably a retest of these lows around 6 cents. So we had a few people who joined a little bit later today. Had Baba and Cheryl. Did you guys have any questions? I know that you missed the first part where I went over Bitcoin on the longer term time frames and then worked my way down to that daily and a little bit of under. Any questions from you guys? Can you DM me? You can DM me. My DMs are open. If you follow me on Twitter, you can DM me. I may not answer right away. Typically, I'm on Twitter. I do what I need to do, grab a few things, look at a few posts, and then I'm out. And that's usually pretty quick, on and off there. So you might see me on doing stuff like posting, and then you go to DM me and like, oh, he didn't reply. I will get back to you when I open the app back up, though. Now, I do suggest for those of you that have not seen it, first, if you're in here, go ahead and hit like. That would help. Always does help. And if you are on Twitter, hold on one second. Let me get over to the area that I wanted to look at here. And yeah. Okay, so I did a little bit of a thread yesterday where I said, hey, Bitcoin's fairly quiet. As it trades in between support and resistance levels. And then here's my setup. What are you guys looking at? And then I gave my interpretation of that setup. I think that's important that you go read that. But more importantly is that after in this thread, I also posted how the 1 hour was relevant. I had gotten some questions and they were DM'd to me. So I had quite a few. And this is very important. You should give this a read. There's the entire thread because you want the context of what I'm talking about. But this part here, where the common question that I've gotten is expansion and contraction. It's determined on a candle closing basis. So keep that in mind. It's when the candle closes. Things can wick all over the place. It's all about where the close is for the time frame that you are watching. So if I'm talking about the daily closes or the 4 hour or the hourly, it's about closing. And now when I was talking about this, I'd mentioned the downside areas. If I saw closes below the lower second, I'm targeting 28.8. Why? Because where this was at 29K. It ran the 29K area. The lower second and third were at 29K, and then around that area it needs to get closes below, and then I can start targeting this wick low. Well, it wicked right back in. Didn't get a close below the lower second, didn't get a close above the upper second. Now we've seen a close below the lower second. It's not totally a given that this is going to break down, by the way. It is target areas. It's kind of hit the main target areas at the lower third around 29.1. If this second candle here by close of day closes below the lower second, I would be watching it. If it finds the lower first to the basis and even the upper first as resistance, then I would still keep an eye on it because it did get a little bit of expansion. It's not much, but it is expansion back to the downside. Now, because this is in a consolidation here, until we see something break either to the upside, the overhead resistance, or this wick low, there's nothing really to talk about when it comes to price action for the moment. Does that make sense? I want to make sure that everybody understands that. Ever set some buy orders in order to catch that wick? No, not really. Not when the setup's like this, because that wick low, unless it swings it from here, it's more likely to head down further if it was going to go test that wick low. If it was going to swing it, I'll have an alert that's usually set up in my trading app of choices. Trading View is late with some of these alerts, whereas the alerts on many of the trading platforms come through my phone immediately. By the way, tip for those of you that are using Apex Exchange, that their alerts are almost instantaneous. I've been impressed with that part of it. And when looking at, if it was more likely, to be quite honest, more likely if I was going to place any kind of orders ahead of time, it'd be head shorts at 29.5 again. But quite honestly, the look on the daily tells me that if you start to short 29.5, you're probably going to get taken out of position. If it's not on a wick, it's going to be on a close, because 29.4 to 5 on a daily is probably going to keep things turned to the upside on momentum, gets the 2-day to turn up, and like all that stuff that I talked about probably before you had entered the chat here. But just know that when I'm looking at and describing things related to the bands, we're looking at closes. So that's what we're talking about here. And this, nothing interesting unless we're below 28.8. And I'm sorry, above 28.8. There's not too much interesting to the downside. And below 29.5, there's not too much interesting to the upside just yet. So the thing is if I'm going to place an order from here, if I'm going to preemptively place an order, and this is not financial advice, this is theoretical, I would have my orders in my support zone, and they would be longs. If it missed it and got front run, then I would have my criteria for what that, for taking that trade. I have a trade checklist for that. So I hope that helps. Otherwise, no. The only time I have resting orders, the only time I have resting orders is if, not for trades, it's for accumulation. So they're actual just buys, spot buys. Other than that, not typically. The only resting orders I have are take profits and stop losses. Any other questions before I head out of here? Check that thread out on Twitter if you haven't already. It is, I hope that, I hope that will help you guys understand a little bit with the context of what I was just talking about today as well. And yeah. Okay. So I have a few other questions over here from you guys. What we'll do is I'm going to jump off here pretty soon, and I'm going to answer those questions privately for you, because some of those are going to involve me actually looking at stuff that I can't have on a live stream for you. And yeah, because if I'm going to help you with that, you don't want that on live stream. So, and then some of the questions that you guys had over there and in the other chat here, not YouTube chat, you guys that I'm pointing at because the camera's on you. Yeah, no, for just so you guys over there in Parsec know, there's no I don't have a camera on the YouTube feed. Maybe someday, but not right now. But for you guys over there, I will answer those other questions because because this is being, they may not have known this is being streamed to YouTube. So yeah, it's public. Yes. Okay, cool. If I don't have any other questions here in the YouTube stream here, I am going to start wrapping things up. I will give you guys a moment with some music. If you have any questions, we'll turn the tunes back up here from the beginning of the stream. And apparently I'm not. Lovely. This app broke hard right as I hit go, by the way. This is not cool. But let's go ahead and turn this back up. I'll let you guys catch up, as I do know that some of you are catching up over there. Okay. You're welcome, Cheryl. Baba, I don't know what you're referring to. If you mean Bitcoin, maybe. It bounced pretty hard off 29.1. Well, we're talking relatively speaking. I mean, this thing's been barely moving over the past few days. The bigger moves are like, whoa, it did a $500 move. Like, like, wee! It's like barely enough to even... It's barely enough to scalp at this point. And in some cases, it's kind of like... You'll walk away from the charts for a couple days, come back and be like, oh, hey, look, it's still there. I mean, this has just been, this is chopping people up. And you know, just so you know, how I know it's chopping people up is go look at open interest. It's on the rise because people are getting chopped the hell out of this entire area and re-entering short and long, and OI is pushing up. So this does mean, because there is an OI buildup here right below resistance, that if it does break above, it's likely to take off to the upside, and if it does break down, it's likely to hit that support, maybe even, you know, some of the other supports that I've talked about to the downside. An OI buildup on compression. You know, this is just classic move is coming, but how, you know, we're just gonna have to wait until it actually starts getting through some of those areas that are more interesting. Yeah, we're sitting at like just over 10 billion, 10 billion, 100 million. And it's gone up on the way down, and then it's continued to go up whenever it's gone down here. It was going up, sideways and up, wash out, and then yeah, there's just not a lot going on. But I would like to actually see it build up and up and up, and then we get a nice massive move. That'd be nice. Trade a nice massive volatile move. As for now, it's doing a fat lot of nothing. All right, guys. You're welcome. All right, guys. I'm going to take off. There's no other questions. For those of you over in Parsec, just hang out. When I say I'm going to take off, that's I'm going to end the YouTube stream here. Don't have any other questions really coming in. Just a lot of thanks for hanging out, and I do appreciate you guys. Thank you over there on YouTube. Thank you for the few that joined in on Twitch. Thanks. Appreciate it. Please go ahead and subscribe, hit like on the video. And if you can help me out with those Bitcoin in 60 seconds videos, likes are the thing that are kind of missing right now. And comments. That would be awesome if you can. As they've changed the algorithm a little bit. They also, you know, I'm also uploading a lot more content more frequently when it comes to the live streams. So give me some help there. Those will then become a little bit more visible to the subscriber base itself, and then possibly reach some others. I do appreciate those of you who are already subscribed. Give me likes and comments and stuff like that. You are much appreciated. And I hope you have a wonderful morning, afternoon, and evening, no matter where you are in the world. Please trade safe. And above all, let's try that again. You have a good morning, afternoon, and evening, no matter where you are in the world. Please trade safe. And of course, above all, as always, stay safe. And with all of that being said, Landy out. Way to lose my voice right at the end there, huh?